This program contains graphic material, including offensive language. Viewer discretion is advised.
The people of the United States will accept Vietnamese refugees?
In certain cases, I think that they will accept.
In certain cases? Which cases?
Those who have families there, and those who have worked for the Americans, and those who have been in the army.
What about the others who have never worked for Americans, who don't have families there? What happens to them?
Vietnam became the American key to the security of Southeast Asia soon after the end of French colonial rule there in 1954. The country was split in half at the 17th parallel. The North fell under communist rule. The South was turned free. Since then, the story of South Vietnam has been the story of this man, Ngo Dinh Diem, the son of a noble Mandarin family that turned Roman Catholic back in the 17th century. Diem came to power in 1955. His country had been split in two a year earlier, and with a multi-billion-dollar U.S. aid program, Diem built a powerful army as a bulwark against the communist guerrillas in the north.
Because when we start saying the war is wrong in Vietnam, well, people looked at us like we were something out of space. But when they talked about the other day of the Gallup poll being 58% of the people against the war in Vietnam, then we see if you're right, you have to stand on that principle, and if it's necessary to die on the principle, because I am sick of the racist war in Vietnam when we don't have justice in the United States.
We're going to commit troops to the Vietnamese people, the National Liberation Front, to fight the cowardly American aggressor.
Who's
and the Black Panther Party.
Panthers.
That's right.
30,000 Chicanos marched through the streets of East LA that day. It was meant to be a peaceful anti-war demonstration. But within a couple of hours, it looked like a war zone. 200 people were arrested, 60 were wounded, and 4 killed. Wait, hold on a second. Let's rewind for a moment. It was 1970, it was the Vietnam War, and President Nixon had just intensified the war, even after he said he would end it. Thousands of American soldiers were returning home in caskets, and one community started to notice a pattern. Mexican Americans, who were just 10% of the population in southwestern states, were 20% of those killed in combat. This sparked a movement in defense of Latinx lives. It wasn't exactly a Black Lives Matter moment, no two movements in history are the same, but it was the beginning of a Latinx-led push for civil rights, and part of U.S. history that many in the community are making sure is not forgotten 4 decades later.
Latinos were being sent to the front lines deliberately, were lower achievers in the eyes of the government, but when it came to war and the need for cannon fodder, were prime meat.
This is Rosalio Munoz. He was an outspoken student leader back then and co-founder of the Chicano Moratorium, an organized effort to mobilize Mexican Americans and Chicanos to oppose the Vietnam War.
This